Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me on the channel today. Now, I do have something a little bit special planned. Now, if you tuned into the channel a little bit earlier in the week, you will see there was an absolute banger that we featured from Toronto is Broken featuring Reebz. How's it going?
Awesome. It's great to be here. I'm very, very excited for this.
Yeah, great. Cheers.
This is cool, man. No, thank you both of you for being here. So I just want to say it's been absolutely awesome to check out the new track DRIPFEED. I mean certainly for me personally. I mean I had a little inkling about what was coming. To those of you that don't know, Christian does keep me updated on what he's what he's planning, and I'd never heard of you Reebz before, which I was quite annoyed by, to be perfectly honest. So people not putting you in the algorithm, that's that's fucking bad on them. But yeah, when I heard a little clip, I was like, oh my god. So we've basically got the fucking UK version of Courtney from SPIRITBOX.
I'll take that.
And
I'll take that any day.
The demo I heard on its own was amazing, but what you guys have produced with DRIPFEED has just been absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm really interested. Like, how did this collaboration even start out? Like, did you both know each other before, or was this like
no? So I think it was maybe almost a year ago, so maybe around May time. I was speaking with Zardonic, who's a drum and bass producer. He's from Germany, and he did a remix of Paragons, and he's cut a couple of years ago, and he's always been like a follower of my stuff anyway, since like the early days, like 2014 and stuff, like long before I was doing the metal crossover stuff, just doing just straight drum and bass more or less. And yeah, always kind of kept in touch, and yeah, we've been working. We've been doing some kind of bits together as well, and in various different kind of capacities, such as like the Paragons remix, like I mentioned. And yeah, I was showing him some stuff for the album. I was like, yeah, I like the idea of like having like one vocalist, like kind of doing everything for this album. I think I maybe mentioned, don't know if I mentioned it when we spoke in general or when we did that last video interview. I can't remember. But yeah, one of the things I kind of struggled with. Well, upon reflecting after Claire, which was the last album, which obviously our last video chat was about, I felt like it was fine with like in the drum bass community, but I didn't hit the metal scene as much as I'd like to have to, and I think part of that was the fact that on every track there was a different vocalist, a different featured artist, which in electronic music is fine, it's expected. Because it's kind of about the producer, but like metal fans, I suppose, aren't necessarily so used to that, because they're used to essentially the band having the same vocalist lead them throughout the album and stuff like that. So I'm trying to find someone to work with, had a few ideas of various different people, but like also I wanted somebody that was based in the UK, because if we were to ever do so that they can jump on like the shows as well, or if we get round to doing a live band show thing one day, then it makes sense we can tour and stuff. Because obviously if they're based in like Balance, for example, would have been perfect, who did on Paragons, but he's based over in Chicago, so it's just not logistically possible to do it. So to do something like that. So, and also historically, like if we were to play some of my older back catalogue, historically kind of generally been more female vocals on the stuff. So there was a lot of female vocal tracks on the last album, like Always Emotion and The Moment.
Love that one. Always
like Between
Emotion.
Planes and some of it. Yeah, that's a fun one. And yeah, and also I think like finding a female metal vocalist, I think it's just obviously that's where I came from for the cleans and stuff like that. But like I just think like female screams are more jarring. They have a bit more disturbing to listen to, because it's not so expected. You don't really if you hear a woman scream, it's generally probably not for a good reason. Something bad's happened, or something like that, or like they're like in danger or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you get so used to hearing metal vocals and like the male kind of perspective being the kind of physically angry kind of side of things and whatever. And yeah, so I think that's why I kind of drawn to it so much, especially bands like SPIRITBOX, and recently been really getting into As Everything Unfolds. Like Charlie from that band I know you're a big fan of theirs. I can't wait for their new album. Like, she's an amazing vocalist and stuff, and obviously historically bands like Flyleaf and some others. And it's always just feels more shocking to listen to a female doing screams in like the best way possible. I think it just amplifies the effect, if anything.
Well, I think the one thing with it as well is every vocalist is different. Like touching on your vocals, Reebz, like. I mean, I don't know how much of that. I don't ever expect anyone that like gets a feature off me to then have just like gone back and watched tons of stuff that I've done. But I think I'm basically like, if there's a band that they want to get promoted, it's like, oh, reach out to Kev. He basically is Mr. Reacts to Female Fronted Band. And like awesome. when I heard your vocals, I was like, I'd like to think I know what sounds good, but you've got that really sort of, I don't know, you have that really angelicness to your voice, but then you can really make it creepy as well, but like in such a good way. But then sometimes you get it where you'll have that side of things, but then when it comes to doing the aggressive stuff, it's not always, it's like, oh well, at least they're really good at that bit and they're not so good at that, but it's okay. But from what I've heard of yours so far, I've been absolutely blown away. Honestly, you're just a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned, and it's also awesome that you're fucking awesome as well as like a person.
Aww,
you know.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Honestly, I like.
There's never a dull day when Ree comes round. I can tell you. Like...
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't realise that some of my lifestyle choices are slightly unconventional, because for me, like, just having like collecting random pigeons and stuff like is a normal thing to do, whereas like when me and Chris had our first vocal recording session and I turn up at his place and I was like, excuse me mate, have you got anywhere I can just put this pigeon while we're here? And he was like, what? Like, so I like rescued a pigeon and yeah, like en route to
fucking, what was it? So she came up to mine a couple of weeks ago to record a music video for which is like it's a future single. It's not the next one, but it's another one that has Ree on it. And some people might have seen on social media, and we kind of did a DIY approach and like did it my attic. Anyway, we had to go out to get some shots. And Ree drove and fucking had like a box of like locusts on my lap as I had to drive down. Which is like the most whole thing of it. She's like, yeah, I'm away for like 4 days. And like, what was it? I can't remember. You had to like, you were like trafficking like locusts across county lines or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
so it's probably something like that. I mean, as we have discussed before, you know, like locusts clearly are my dream. No, they're not. I'm joking. But my favorite part about that situation Chris is now referring to is the fact that in the most normal possible way, he sees on my passenger seat, I've got this box of locusts, which actually, just for context, were part of a sort of a prop for another shoot of my own that I was actually doing in Manchester straight after the one that me and Chris were doing in Leicester.
Oh, nice.
And in the most normal possible way, he goes, "Oh, are they your travel buddies?" And I was like, "What?" And then he goes, "Oh, well, I just thought, you know, maybe you just get lonely when you're traveling." I'm like, I bring my friendship circle amounts to.
No, I just assumed that you'd like acquired them on the way to take them back home with you or something, but you had to go via Manchester back to Gloucester.
That is the sort of thing I would do, though, to be fair.
But I think
it's fantastic.
What I was trying to say. I was speaking to Zardonic and talking to him about this idea that I had behind the album, and I think funnily that day, he suggested, oh, check out Reebz or whatever, and sent me some links and stuff or whatever, and then he connected us over like over WhatsApp anyway, and funnily just by chance that day I just started writing DRIPFEED. So literally from that moment, I was able to send. I think it was probably just the intro up until like the first chorus, essentially. At that point,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think I had that ready to go from the off. So that was kind of. So yeah, it's kind of good that the first one that we released together was also like the first one from the album that we worked on together. But like you talking about like the versatility, there's tracks where so half of the vocals on the album is and the other half roughly is Sabotage.
Okay.
We did like Gun Fingers and Circle with. And the three of us have been working together, and there's some tracks as well where there's the both of them on it together as well.
I was literally, I was just gonna ask if you.
No,
if
there
you've
is.
done that.
There's one that we're really excited about. That is definitely gonna be a single, but it's a bit later on down the line. But okay. There's tracks where they're like Drip Feed, where maybe a bit more clean, a bit more singing. There's some that are the polar opposite. So, like for example, the one that we filmed the music video for a couple of weeks ago, that I'm still editing, the one that we were just talking about. There's not a word of singing in that. It's just straight like screaming. It sounds like a grind. I retracked the guitars for it, and I've been working with George Lever, who produced all the Sleep Token stuff up until like the most recent album, and he did the recent Fallen Hell album, and a bunch of other people like Monuments. Yeah, he's been retracking the guitars with me and doing like the guitar engineering and the tones on them and stuff. I put them back in, and track just sounds like a grindcore track now. It's just ridiculous. It's like it's the most overly aggressive thing. So there's tracks like that, and then there's some stuff like some other tracks that are on that heavier spectrum as well. I think there's a track that's even heavier than that we showed you as well. That's on there. And then some stuff that's a bit more 50-50. So like it's a really wide spectrum of kind of what Ree does.
I mean,
on this album display.
From hearing the little preview of what you sent me, honestly, like people, I'm gonna ask you this now, because I know this is what everybody wants to know. Everyone that I've spoke to who absolutely loved it.
Is it why is Toronto broken? Please don't. It wasn't. Thank God.
It wasn't Toronto is broken, because after you released that banger, you just basically fixed it. I know I've already.
And the label it came out on is called Fixed as well.
Fixed,
so
yes, it is. No way. No, the one thing.
Toronto's fixed now.
The one thing everyone wants to know is, and I know what Reebz wants out of this because we've discussed it. Are you going to make this into like a permanent thing, dude, or what? Because come on, mate, it's amazing. I mean,
we'll just have to see how it goes. We've already planned to work on more stuff after the album. So, for example, after this album's done, the deadline for like the final mixes to be turned in and sent in for mastering is only a couple of months away. So it's not that long left. But I think after that, me and Ree are going to jump on. Essentially, Ree's doing an album next. Or like 10 or so tracks or whatever. We don't know what it's gonna end up looking like, but she's already got the demos, and we're gonna work on those together and produce them. So they'll be like Reebz kind of stuff, but obviously it's important to make sure it sounds different to what we're doing on this end of stuff and things. But yeah, I think there's been we've had little brainstorming ideas of little things to have a go at. It's not necessarily like let's do an album next together, just the two of us, so let's do an EP. It's more like we both hear something and be like, yeah, we need to at some point do a tune with an element from this element from that song, and give our spin on it and stuff like that. So it's not gonna be just a wham bam thank you ma'am, just one album done kind of thing. So, and obviously there's Seb as well. So
the way that I really like in terms of like how we work, or how we come to formulate ideas for stuff as well, is like when we get concepts in mind, so like themes for things. I mean, personally, for me, I can't speak for Chris, but I'm pretty sure it's the same in that, like, I'm like a massive like horror fan, for example, and being able to take inspiration from like, concepts of horror movies and like aesthetics and stuff is like that's a big thing in terms of then emulating that with sound. So, you know, and I really like that. So it's like when we're kind of having our back and forth, like, oh, it'd be cool to do this, be cool to do this. There's always kind of concepts in mind, like almost like a storyline in mind. And it's really cool being able to see how that evolves over the course of, say, for example, an album. You know, how that story, how that concept actually unfolds and turns out is really cool. So
yeah. So the last 3 albums, I think I touched on it, they were kind of linked together because this is my 4th album. But really it kind of feels more like I'm writing my 2nd album.
I mean,
Claire was kind of like
obviously that was I didn't realize
Pinnacle,
until after you'd done that was like the opening for me, and then since then I've listened to like previous, and then basically for the last like week and a half, like Drip Feed has basically just been on repeat. But like one thing
Mate,
I was gonna say,
I bet you're kicking yourself knowing that you had it in your folder for almost like a whole month before it came
like,
out.
Yeah, like literally, like I knew it was going to be good, right? But like I remember every day, because you give basically everybody. So Christian gave me this way in advance. I think I already started following Reebz as well, like from like before anything official had been put about them like working together. So anyway, so he sends me it, and I was like, right, sweet, yeah, I've got about 2.5 weeks before it needs to be done. And just because like work and stuff, it was just like, right, I'll just download it, chuck it into my downloads folder. Dude, literally every day when I'm like filming something, all I see every day is Reeb's face looking at me from what the video. But like
that must be so.
It's like nightmare fuel.
There must be so like I can like if you obviously react to your favorite bands as well, the bands you react to, you kind of get most excited about and stuff, and then you see they drop something new. And you're like, I bet a lot of the time you're like, oh, yeah, their new single. Oh, wait, I can't listen to it yet until I've set up my cameras and everything. And like, you can't, it must be quite difficult sometimes. Just like fight. I bet there's been some times where you just had to cave and you like, because obviously it needs to be a genuine first time reaction, doesn't it? You can't, you need to kind of avoid like spoilers online, I suppose, of like,
I'll get people to be like, oh, dude, like, you know, have a look. If you like it, you know, then drop a feature for it. But they'll sometimes say, just send me the link, and I was like, oh, I'll have a look. And then I was just like, oh, that was really good. We're like, oh yeah, you don't have to feature it. And I was like, well, I fucking can't now, can I? You know?
Yeah, I've watched it now.
Yeah, I know some people will, but like, yeah, for me, that's why I get so like I literally said to Reebz earlier today. I was like, you know, I do get a lot of people that I'll be like, oh yeah, right, yeah, sweet, I'll get this done in like 2 days time or whatever. Then something else drops, or I'll just see like a thumbnail and I'll be like, right, that looks really interesting, I need to do that like today. I'd like to say that I have a schedule. I honestly don't. There's certain ones that I know I'm going to be doing, but then, for instance, like I'll see, like I know as everything unfolds, we've got a new their new single drops. I think it's on. Is it Thursday? So. Oh,
are they releasing another one after Flipside?
Yeah, it comes. I think it's Thursday.
I think I've already got the album pre-ordered on iTunes anyway. So.
I will. I'll definitely be like actually getting a hard copy. I don't physically have a CD player I can put it into, but just to have it. But yeah, there's certain bands that I will literally drop everything for when people say, oh yeah, you're in the schedule. It's literally just a massive playlist that I have. But there's obviously certain bands that, unfortunately, that's the way it goes at the end of the day.
And I bet as well, because it must literally be a case of you judging a book by its cover to decide whether to react to it. And I bet there's been times where you've listened to something new, reacted to it, and then afterwards you're like, either, oh, I don't really add anything to this video or anything, it's a bit. I bet there's been times where you've gone to record a video and then you probably just canned the reaction afterwards. I bet so. But I imagine that's few and far between because you know what you like, kind of going into it. So
it does happen. Like I had one that I had to put out today, and I felt really bad about putting it out because it was produced brilliantly. There was literally nothing. There was nothing wrong with it. I just didn't like it at all, and
you just didn't connect with it. So.
Yeah, and whereas, you know, like all you need to do to know if I like something, and this is a great way and a cheat of knowing how much I actually love something, just watch the previews that I put on like my stories and stuff. If you see little edits of zoom-ins and glitchy bits, you're like, he loves this. That's why like when I was watching Drip Feed, I was like, oh, there's loads of little bits I can be like, boom, boom, you know.
Yeah,
sick.
It was really,
honestly,
cool.
like your reaction made my like entire life. Like that was just so cool to see that, and it's funny. Like you mentioned the word connection, and I think that's like a really poignant thing, because to be able to have a connection with people through like whatever art it is that you're actually putting out is like it's a really gratifying experience. And yeah, like it's just so cool to be able to see that, you know, like you enjoy it, people enjoy it. It's really sick.
I love it. I loved it. I mean, like, I think the one thing that really does make a difference. I mean, when I saw that you'd, I didn't even know you were going to do this, but when you like put up on your story and you're like, I'm in the car again, I'm still in the car, and then like,
I'm in your mum's car.
Yeah,
Rome.
when you basically did like, you know, that big thank you. Honestly, I'm not joking. I honestly don't think. I'm just thinking very carefully here to think if anyone ever has done anything like that for me in the last 5 years that I've been doing this. I honestly don't think so. Maybe like you know, bands like, well, they'll always like, you know, they'll share the video and stuff like that. But to see that you actually see that there is exactly why I do it, because I always think like, I was like, oh, I've not featured this band before. Oh, I'll drop this for them, and you know, they'll probably really appreciate that. Sometimes but I don't do it to be like, hey, look, I've done this. Fucking worship my ass, you know. I just, as you know, I do it because I love to do it, and I love to share.
All you need to do is ask, Kevin.
Share it.
All you need to do is ask.
Yeah. No, but it's so nice. It's so nice when you do that, because I could see exactly how much that meant to you. And I mean, I think literally
it's
within minutes.
Actually, I had something similar kind of happen today. Like, I think I've just been having a bit of a low, as you do working on music and stuff, anything creative. Had a bit of a low period over the past few weeks, maybe struggling a bit with motivation. Things necessarily haven't been working out as well. Like, I've been battling to kind of get the most recent single finished in time as well. And there's been a lot of back and forth and with various aspects and stuff. But like then just today out the blue, I received a SoundCloud message from like a past student. And he's like, hi, like, I don't know if you remember me, blah, blah, blah. I was at this school, because I think when I used to be a teacher full-time when we last spoke. Yeah. Now I've kind of done that, more or less kind of doing music full-time, but I'm still teaching, like doing supply teaching a couple of days a week, just keep my foot in it and everything. And and he messaged me saying, I was really inspired by what you did with music. He never told me, I didn't have a clue or anything, and he's like, and he's got loads of stuff on SoundCloud and stuff, and he's like, I just wanted to say hi and say thank you for like making me want to like pursue music and stuff. And
that's proper nice.
So those kind of things sometimes are nicer than, oh, this song's hit 100,000 streams on Spotify or whatever, or we got played on Radio 1. Well, obviously, please, I still want those things to continue. But like, do you know what I mean? Like 100%. It's not really like something that's measurable, as opposed to a measurable milestone, like hitting, I get you, like hitting X amount of followers or something or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's nice. Obviously, like I really try hard to. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm chasing just getting on fucking 1,000 on TikTok so I can actually stream on TikTok. I mean, that's literally what I've been chasing. But it literally means. You see, but your kind of stuff is easy because you have all the assets ready. You just post on TikTok what you would post on YouTube.
I guess so. It is a lot harder now because basically ever since lockdown, everyone's doing a reaction channel, so it is a lot harder. But that it helps that I don't care so much about like, oh, I need to be getting 2,000 views, 5,000 views, or whatever. I mean, I put out a video, and if it literally got like 15 views, and if you got some comments on that saying like, oh, I can't believe I've found this through you, you know, this is it, and you get them every now and again, it does come through, and I love that. I think if you're doing this sort of thing purely for the views, and you know, I think you're kind of in it for the wrong reasons, and it kind of does bug me to a point, because there's, you know, artists like yourselves who I know you guys know that I've just basically messaged everyone being like, you need to get on this, you know, you know, and I know
so
that,
cool, man.
and I do get that there's channels out there that are very much about the businessy side of it. It's
I'm
sort
going to
of-
see quickly if Lancaster is still in the top 10 cities.
It
of-
bloody better be. It bloody better be. But yeah, like
Because
you know,
generally it was, wasn't it? It was like number 8 the other day.
it was.
Top country, top cities. Right, here we go.
Come on.
Ah, you've been relegated to 19, mate.
Oh,
No.
Ah,
I better.
number 1 is London. Helsinki, Finland. That'll be
Nice.
Dennis and his mate, won't it? From the video.
I got
So,
Dennis.
Dennis was the drummer in the video for DRIPFEED, and
Oh, nice.
we would like to say he travelled all the way from Finland just to be in that music video, but he just happened to be coinciding a trip with it, and he's like just a good friend of ours, and knows my manager John as well, and he's just been a big fan, and he was like, yeah, we'd love to get involved, and yeah, it was great to have him.
So that's not
That
like
was such a cool day. That shoot was awesome.
So it was kind because we wanted more like a band style, very typical kind of, because it's not a drum and bass song.
no.
It's a electronic.
It's got the production slightly there for
It's
it.
got the
though.
production, but like it's 69 beats per minute too slow. Okay, so it genuinely is, because I make drum and bass. Well, the drum and bass I make is at 174.
174 in it, yeah.
Yeah, and this is 105. But there's a lot more. That's more of like a song, I suppose, as opposed to a club tune, even though it's engineered like one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like somebody described it as like down-tuned, slightly slower pendulum, which I suppose like fits the bill. I suppose for this one, they might not compare us to Pendulum after they hear the next few singles and stuff. But like I've been really experimenting with. So it's not just drum and bass on this album. I've gone back to some of my breakbeat roots and doing some breakbeat stuff again, with like the exploring different tempos and different. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many metal riffs and grooves and rhythms you can write at 174 beats per minute. So whilst, and I recently in the past couple of years gotten really heavily like into new metal. Like I discovered well, obviously I'd heard of Deftones, but never really properly listened to them a couple of years ago. Same with Limp Bizkit. Obviously Linkin Park was always there, but like delving deeper into all that like noughties kind of like early noughties, like new metal, American grungy kind of sound stuff. So like bands like Seven Dust and Earshot as well.
Oh my god, you know Earshot.
Those guys.
No.
Well, I only know Wait. I know Wait, but yeah. So yeah, and those kind of stuff have been a good inspiration. Just those grooves around that like more hip hop kind of tempo, and so I've been writing stuff that's at 105 BPM around that new metal hip hop mid tempo kind of tempo range, which has a real cool kind of bounce of it. Me and Seb's done some bits. Obviously, me and Ree have done more at that tempo as well, and just experimenting with that kind of like this neuro funk crossover of like new metal kind of thing.
I love it.
So
it's awesome.
New neuro funk, for those who don't know, is like a subgenre of like drum and bass, which is really dark and really distorted. People like Noisier and Black Sun Empire and Edwish and Optical.
I do need to check that, because I did notice who was the dude you and me were talking about, Reebz, the other day, that you had that interview that I'd watched that you did Grey with.
Oh, with Artifact.
Yeah, so I've seen on his
Yeah.
YouTube, as soon as you said new,
I got Marcel, yeah.
the neuro, what was it? Neurofunk was
Neurofunk.
Yes, so I saw that there's a video that he's put up. I think it was like one of his more recent ones, and obviously, like I mean, when I first heard Toronto is Broken, like I don't even know how long ago that was now, man. It seems like forever ago.
Well,
But,
it
like,
was 2 years ago now. Two and a bit years since Claire came out.
Yeah, so at that point, I wasn't really, I wouldn't say I ever like actively searched out drum and bass, and then every now and again I've sort of delved in a little bit, but literally since this come out, like I'd messaged I messaged one of my friends on WhatsApp the other day. I was like, dude, you got to check out this song that I just like randomly come across on Spotify, and he was like, I literally never thought I'd be getting a recommendation for drum and bass off you. And
I tell you what, do you know? I don't know if I told you, the first video of yours I found, it's you're like from years ago. You're like lying on your sofa, vaping away watching a Chase and Status music video from the TV. And obviously Chase and Status are kind of pioneers and massive figureheads in drum and bass. Ironically enough, it wasn't one of their drum and bass tracks you listened to. It's like Hypest Hype with Temper T.
I think it was,
and that's actually a breakbeat track, not drum and bass, because it's too slow to be drum and bass.
I can't remember how that happened, but I can guarantee you
it's like when they were doing the rockier stuff. I think their second album, so stuff like Blind Faith and End Credits was on that album as well. That's their kind of big breakthrough album. But
I can guarantee
banger.
Guarantee you, dude, as well. At that point of how I've certainly become much more open to different styles over the last 5 years, but I can guarantee you when that had been done as like, I don't know, I'd have probably done like a group poll or something for what someone wanted requesting, and I guarantee you when that would have come up, I'd have probably gone like, oh fuck's sake, I'm probably not gonna like this. But over the year,
it's a banger.
I'm just telling you.
We all know Temper T. Won't get none of your CDs back.
Dude, at that time, I wouldn't say I wasn't closed-minded, but obviously I wasn't quite as open. I wasn't as open-minded as what I am now with music. Don't get me wrong. There's still gonna be lots of stuff that'll come out, and I'll just be like, nope.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I've liked this journey.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there was a time in my life when I wasn't into electronic music at all. Like I thought electronic music was all just like bleepy noises and stuff that sounded like Cascada and Scooter with like pitched up vocals. And then
I used to love Cascada. What you're talking about, Cascada? I used to love
that. I do appreciate Cascada now.
How
but
dare
back
you?
then, like
Reebz is going to get locusts.
It was when and I discovered Enter Shikari. And Take to the Skies in particular. Like they kept on being all because they used to get Kerrang magazine every week or every other week or whatever, and they were just always ranting and raving about them. But I never really, because it wasn't so easy to listen to, because you only had like dial-up internet at home at that point. It's like mid 2000s or whatever. Like we're all just on MSN still.
Yeah.
So what was it? Downloading a song, just downloading one song would be like what, like 4 hours?
But it wasn't so easy. If you heard a new song to go out and just find it, you had to probably go into a shop and buy the CD or something. And that's even then when they used to have the little booths in like HMV, like private listening booths, where you could like test the CD before you bought it and stuff. And so I bought Take to the Skies had just come out. And that weekend, I was in Morrison's, had a bit of spare I had like some pocket money or whatever, and just on a whim, because I was getting into heavier stuff, bought the CD, and like literally, and here we are now. It's quite funny, like a lot of times when you speak to people that have got like a career in electronic music, you say, oh, when they talk about how they got into it, it's the very common answers of like early Prodigy or like Chemical Brothers or Daft Punk or Justice, those kind of acts. Yeah. But for me, it's Enter Shikari is what I would say for my introduction into electronic music. So I don't know where yours came from, Ree, but
especially the crossover element of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what bridged me over, because it was all like emo and metal, and like I just lived on a diet of like My Chemical Romance and Panic at the Disco and Billy Talent as well. And
oh my god, I love Billy Talent. It's exactly that though. Like for me, what we're doing now is literally like my dream, because I've always loved anything electronic, and I've always loved anything that's like really, really heavy. So I've had these two extremes of genres essentially that I've always been really passionate about, and to be able to be involved in something that actually is merging them in such a way and in such a creative and like boundary pushing way is like, it's awesome. It's really cool. But yeah, I mean, for me, Enter Shikari was like a massive moment where I was like, oh my God, people can do this. This is sick. Like if you combine this, it sounds really sick. So
I remember first hearing that album. I remember, when you first hear the like, I don't know the exact word for it, but I think it starts with like dun 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 dun, like the little trancey bit in the background.
Oh, at the very start of the album. It's just the gated vocals, like choir synth. It's like and then it just breaks into shit.
Yes, yeah. So I remember hearing that, but then like hearing all the sampling going on, and I'm sure I remember I was working in like a warehouse at the time, and I'm sure I remember shouting down to my mate to put it on. I was like, "Oh, get your drugs out." But yeah, like I think that was that one moment, because I used to love dance music and like happy hardcore and stuff when I was a lot.
happy hardcore, man. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Did you know why, Reece? Because he's a northerner, that's why.
I'll tell you what.
I'm not, but happy hardcore was like my staple, like growing up. So
I think it was just everyone at school when I was at high school. I remember everyone bought the Bonkers album, and I remember I just went out and bought the Bonkers album one day, and I remember bringing it back, and I was just absolutely loving it. And I remember a while back listening back to it and knowing that's all I listened to. I was like, Jesus Christ, how did I not blow my brains out? Because that was like really crazy.
Did you also have a Sony Ericsson Walkman phone as well?
I did. Yeah, I did, man. But yeah, I think when Enter Shikari came out, when I heard that sort of like, again for me, I hadn't gone back into like dance music or anything like that. But obviously, I think that's why I've always enjoyed the elements when like electro. There's been a lot of metalcore bands that fuse electronica in there. So it's very very in. There's only certain bands that do it well, because you hear it and you're like, oh, they're just putting that in because they're trying to be like whatever band. But like,
I think all music is written on a computer these days. I think it's no secret that when it comes to bands don't really write music jamming in a practice room together anymore. It's normally one or two people, maybe like, for example, like the guitarist and the vocalist, they're the primary songwriters, or a lot of the time it might just be one person that writes everything, and then the vocalist comes in with a top line and they work on that and stuff. So, and yes, it's very much really, it might be a band, but it's really one person's kind of project, I suppose. And it's all written on, like, you can all like demo stuff on a computer. Everything's fully written, ready to go when I go to the studio, so they know what they're doing. They just need to retrack everything, and obviously get someone else to mix it as well, in things. And yeah, it's just full of like, you could argue pretty much all modern kind of metalcore these days is all, I suppose, really electronic. Is all electronic music.
Yeah,
like a lot of the time, obviously, even like a lot of the drums on a lot of bands are kind of like programmed as well.
I was shocked when I found that out. I was like, here's me being in bands for years, like, oh, we need to go to the studio. And if anyone had ever said to me, oh, we're not going to use you, we're just going to program it in, I'd be like, you can fuck off. but it sounds way better. It does. I'm not going to lie.
But even then, they'll take, your takes will be taken and they'll be quantized and stretched at perfect time anyway to the grid and layered. So it's fine. But I'm perfectly fine. I know there's some people like this, like Glenn Fricker online, who's that music producer that fights a big battle against like sample drums and whatever and stuff. But like, it's obviously fine with me. It's how I do all of my drums and stuff. So, but like, I'm just more saying that, referring to how much like electronic music it is these days, metal and stuff like that. And like some bands really, even if the crossover isn't really their focus, a lot of bands still have tons of like strings and post-production and like someone that me and Reeve worked with, a guy called Nathan Smart. One of his main things he does is he just does tons and tons of post-production for bands. So bands will send the band stuff over, and he'll just program all of the synths and atmospheres and everything.
Yeah, he's incredible
all of that for them,
at it.
and then send it back to them, and they mix it in and stuff. So that's what he does, and that's kind of like his. I think that's the biggest thing the main thing he does, amongst lots of other things. But then there's some bands that when they do the crossover and they really integrate, like for example, the last Northlane album, absolutely phenomenal for me. And I got to see them live in Birmingham in January because they were touring with Sleep Token. It was just them and Sleep Token.
Wish I'd have gone.
Northlane paid, I think it was a 50-minute set, and they were supporting. Normally it's 30 minutes, but because they were the only support, the sound system was absolutely phenomenal. Like, it was literally like being in the middle of the Matrix. Like, the whole visuals compared to it. Sleep Token obviously smashed it for an hour and a half, but it's obviously a very different kind of vibe. It's more everyone singing and crying. It's like the Matrix cave. Do you know the cave rave scene in the second Matrix film? That's what.
Yes.
Yeah, the underground rave. That's basically what the Northlane show was like.
That's sick as hell, man.
But yeah, like in bands that cross it over, just like really, really knock it out of the park. But I think it's always, because with what I've done, I think some people, maybe at the end of the day, the music I'm writing, as far over as I push it to metal, is at the end of the day, at its core, still club music. It's still drum and bass. It still needs to work predominantly on the dance floor. Production will be around it. And I think it's maybe it's more unique, maybe, or not necessarily more unique, maybe a bit more interesting to be a drum and bass producer heavily inspired and influenced by metal, as opposed to a metal artist or act being heavily inspired by drum and bass. I think the way around with.
I do think that works really well in a marketing sense as well, both for Just Yourself as Toronto is Broken, but both for Reebz as well. Because if you listen to what Reebz has done before, I've not. It's been really annoying, right? I've purposely not listened to everything all the way through, because I know it's highly likely I'm going to be like, right, you know what, I'm just going to fucking feature that video that she's done just so I can do it right. But I think from a marketing perspective, like when I message the channels that I have to say, oh, you should check this out. So basically, right, it's a drum and bass producer, but he's massive metalhead. He loves like his metalcore. And then he's brought in Reebz as well, and you have to try not to tell them exactly what it is.
You don't want to get, you don't want to. I think it's hard because I think when I approached you with Paragons, thankfully it was on the live stream. I just did a request, so I didn't need to explain too much. Basically,
no. I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
But like trying to pitch it, you don't want to necessarily give away too much, or maybe you want to keep the fact that there's a big old massive drum and bass drop coming a complete secret. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just so it has that kind of impact, and it's hard. But then also you need to tell them enough. You need to tell people enough to get them engaged and sucked in the first place, without giving away the best that I've.
The main parts.
I mean,
but it's the main part that you need to use to bring them in. It's more of a case of like, honest guys, just trust me with this one. Like,
I mean, it works kind of similar. Like, so when I said to Reebz and I did like the title of the video, because sometimes if you like literally any band that we feature that's like new, doesn't matter whether it's me or whether it's Orion or whether it's Metal Burb, if it's like that sort of style of vocal, you can guarantee they're probably gonna put Ginger or SPIRITBOX in the title, and it's hilarious.
Which I'm cool with, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
see, that's totally. Really. That's really good. Some people don't like that, but then you also get the people that come in, it doesn't fucking sound anything like SPIRITBOX, and it's like, but I've had people say, dude, you do realise like this is to literally get you to click, and it's fucking worked. And then they might get annoyed at it, but they might like it as well. And I do love at the minute how it's totally true that I've seen over the last 5 years how many more women there are in like rock and metal now. It used to be it's
happening in drum and bass as well. There's been like a real resurgent, a real kind of focus and growth of like female DJs and producers in the past. Probably 5 or 6 years in drum and bass. They've obviously always been there, but I don't know, it's just not been as known of or as prevalent. But you got people like in the scene like Natty Lou, Georgie Riot, something, obviously Katie Coven.
I know one.
You've been checking out. Like she's at the top. Like people, and also female vocalists really taking a lot more center stage in drum and bass, like Ruth Royal and Charlotte Haining and a Little Sound. Like freaking, she's predominantly a female vocalist first and foremost that features a lot of drum and bass, but she's like main stage headlining at Boomtown, playing to like 20,000 people, just her and some decks, like DJing and doing vocals live at the same time. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's really so it's parallels in the drum and bass scene with like the metal scene. And I can't say too much about the other styles of electronic, like EDM, like you dubstep in your house and stuff, because I don't really follow that much. But I could definitely say and talk about what I've kind of observed and stuff in drum and bass in the past couple of years. So.
I mean, like, I think it's sorry. I just think it's really cool that there is this sort of newly emerging emphasis on women in these within these genres. But equally, you know, I kind of think like regardless of sort of gender, if you're really like fucking good at what you do,
you're good.
You should have the spotlight. Like, it doesn't. I don't feel like I'm not sort of biased as to men or women or whatever. I think it's just really cool. I mean, for myself, I just am striving to be the absolute best that I can. You know, and especially with vocals. You know, I've always loved music. It's always been my passion, and I kind of dipped my toes into it a few years ago we're talking, I swear, nearly like 10 years ago or something, for like a sort of a brief period of time. But really, like, doing things to this level, and progressing at this rate is like totally new for me, as in, like, I kind of only really started, I think, like about a year and a half ago, in terms of like, I'm going to do this. I want to get into, I'm going to learn to like write my own songs, like in terms of like production and stuff. And with the vocals, it really is always a work in progress. And it's like, it's really cool to hear myself evolving, and it will continue to evolve as well. That's my plan anyway.
So funnily enough, like when you kind of mentioned that, like obviously Drip Feed was the first kind of track that we worked on together, and even before we fully finished Drip Feed, we'd started all the other stuff as well. And and it's been, we'll move on to it in a minute, but like it's just been a really interesting and very different process writing this album for me as opposed to how I've written anything before. But like, for example, with Drip Feed, obviously it was the first one, and like literally, I think, what was it, like the weekend before it had to be turned in, was up until like 4 in the morning and completely re-recorded the whole track, the vocals. Like,
why am I not surprised?
We didn't have to.
I didn't even know I didn't have to. It was only that literally after I'd done this, and I was like, I was genuinely unhinged with like sleep deprivation, and you're like, oh yeah, they said they didn't even need the vocals anyway. I was like, what?
And then but then there were like, there was stuff you wanted to redo anyway. I think
there was. So that's it. Like, honestly, in terms of perfectionism, I think, you know, you are your own biggest critic, or at least for me, I am. So it's a case of finding the balance between, you know, getting the absolute best possible execution of vocals that I can, and also knowing when it's good enough, you know, like knowing when to just, okay, you can leave that. That's a
or
good
even
fight.
Then just knowing when to just call it a day and just move on, because otherwise you could just never stuff never gets finished.
Exactly.
You just can't. Right, that's it. It's done. We've done whatever now. We're going to call it a hair.
Well,
so obviously deadlines are a big help with that as well. But like, yeah. But...
The result from you obviously re-recording that has obviously done wonders. You know what? I do really wish. Like, for me, everyone always says, right, that everyone does like these reaction videos, and everyone always says that they wish they could like never have heard Pisces by Ginger, so that they can hear it for the first time. And you know what?
I've never really listened to Ginger. I think I tried to listen. I think I tried to listen like briefly. I think it was just a bit. Just didn't really do anything for me, I think.
That's
in terms of vocally, right? I obviously, and this is the only area in which, like, and it's not even bias. It's literally because I am a female vocalist. I take so much inspiration from other female vocalists. You know, in terms of physicality and like, and you know, vocal anatomy with like, I don't really know what the hell goes on in there, but it's really, really helpful for me to be able to see like these incredible women executing these vocals. And like Ginger, it's Tatiana, isn't it? Like she is like, I'm just like, right, I am going to achieve that sound one day. I will do it. And I'm listening it's amazing.
I think for me, it was just more the sound of the band overall. I think they're more heavier than SPIRITBOX, like a bit more towards that deathcore kind of maybe direction, which is
definitely
not my kind of necessarily. I don't really venture that far.
Whereas, no, I get you. Whereas for me, as in everything I ever listen to, it's always like, I always have predominantly in my head a vocal perspective when I'm listening to stuff. Like, I'm always listening to vocals. And for me, trying to now focus on expanding like my mid and low range with like distorted vocals and stuff. Listen to bands like Ginger is a huge help, because like I'm listening to women doing this. So yeah, I mean, for me, that's where I get the most appeal with things, is when it's like, oh my god, that's amazing, that sounds amazing. Can I also learn you know, to be able to do that in myself in my own way. Like,
I have
it's
no
cool.
doubt you'll manage that. I have no doubt at all. But for me, what I was saying was like everyone wants to like have that first time of like not hearing it. I honestly do feel that, like I said that this, when I first saw DRIPFEED, it was like I think the first one I ever heard from SPIRITBOX, like the full like proper video, was the one when they're in that creepy house. Is it Balkara?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And there's like the body bags and she's just like dancing.
Well, this
Yeah.
I told Reebz this. This literally had the exact same effect on me as that. But as well as that, I don't know. I just connected so much with the song. It made me feel amazing. But it also had that bit behind it. I mean, I'm very lucky to be in the position where I get to have conversations with you two on like a daily basis. And that's not something that obviously everyone gets. They will do with some bands, but for me, I do. I think it makes it even more special for me, because as much as it's like, oh, hey, you know, we're doing this, it's also cool to be like, oh, so what have you been up to today? You know, how's it going? How's this doing? And that, I love that, because I think there's a lot in the scene where people are like, oh, what are you doing musically? Right, cool, right, yeah, let's do this. But I love actually being able to. I think I did a post a while back that said, some people meet their favorite bands. I basically make best friends with them, you know, and I love that. I do love that. But I was going to ask you, Reebz. So obviously this has been slightly different for Christian doing this with yourself. Obviously it's a different direction in taking Toronto is Broken. For the writing process, for both of you, but it'd be interesting to know Reeb's sort of perspective on this. How was that? Because was there anything that you were like, was, you know, like what it's like when you're in a band, someone's like, oh, I want to put a breakdown here, they're like, no, I don't like that. Was it quite, were you both just like really agreeable on everything, you know?
It is really, really cool and interesting, because I think, and it shows how songs in themselves, to me, are entities. Like each song is its own entity, because the process, in terms of how fluid the process is, I feel it really can differ from song to song. And, you know, obviously without giving too much away, maybe just touching on in comparison to other tracks and songs that we've kind of worked on, like DRIPFEED, being the first one. I mean, it was awesome. Like we absolutely, we're always on the same page, which is what's really, really cool. And it's just a case of making sure that the sound that we then get emulates the vision that we have. Yeah. So in DRIPFEED, for example, like straight away, like we didn't we nailed it. It was like, yeah. That's sick.
Yeah, pretty much songwriting wise, it was pretty much. Then it's just more kind. DRIPFEED was one where we did more. It's all kind of remotely. But yeah, and I think the final vocals are actually an amalgamation of probably like 3 or 4 different kind of vocal sessions that you did. I think.
Totally.
So I think there's some like even some vocals in there from the very initial demo you sent over, like that I've layered in there somewhere probably and stuff like that. But like, I think because I think I had the title first. I normally have a title first, and I think just the idea of DRIPFEED is just a very visceral and kind of just sounds a bit gross.
That's that's
as well, like, so
that's what's really cool, and like coming to me with like the title and with a kind of like almost like I guess almost like an image, like a mood board, in terms of like, you know, these are the emotions that title invokes. And then for me to be able to put my own creative spin on it in terms of the vocals, the meaning and that kind of thing is really, really cool. And seeing that come together, I think, was especially significant for this one, because like, as Chris said, it was entirely like a remote production, even though, we, you know, I must have, how many vocals must I have recorded for that? Like, geez.
Well, I think we maybe
the very end, like
I think majority of them we did kind of in person anyway, the vocals. I think DRIPFEED, because we started that remotely, and then we kind of, so that was, and we've done most of the writing and the work remotely. So at that point, it's just literally fine tuning, like, oh, this little phrase here, maybe you should intonate it slightly differently or whatever, and blah, 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 or approach it. But what's been really good about working with both Ree and Seb on this as well. So there's been a number of things. Firstly, like, unlike previous albums or just anything in general, like, I'll kind of work with a vocalist or featured artist on that singular track level. Like, that's all they need to worry about is that track. Is my job then to basically be able to communicate what I want from that, what I want from their performance and writing, so that it fits in the context of my album. So, which is kind of what I did with Claire, and all the other stuff I've written as well, be it on an album or like just a one-off single or whatever. With this, and again, like, it's been the same with Seb as well. And me and Seb have obviously been working together even longer as well. We're working like, for example, we might work on DRIPFEED, but then we can also talk about how this relates to X and Y of a track that's on the album, and also discussing like so where its role is in the album, or just like how they work in context to one another and stuff. There isn't necessarily like a narrative that flows through this album or something. It's just thematically very on the same kind of page. With an approach with what we're going for and the themes we're kind of covering. But yeah, we've been able to think about the greater context of it. It's been very much like it's been like writing music. Obviously before it's always kind of been me just writing it by myself, and then the only outside input I might have creatively is when I send it to, for example, like whatever featured vocalist, and they do their bit on it and send it back and whatnot. But yeah, with this, it's been like the three of us have been getting into like a rehearsal room and jamming and writing stuff in the older fashioned way, like a group together. Like there's been times when Seb's come up to mine and we've just had a blank canvas Ableton project in front of us, and we get stuff going. Same with Ree. Like there's been a number of tracks where I think like one of them, literally all we had was like a drum groove, and I just had that on loop, and I just started jamming riffs on, and then whilst that's on loop, whilst I'm doing my thing, Ree sat next to me and she's like doing little voice notes into her phone or just writing lyric ideas and stuff. And then we kind of flesh it out that way. So they're very much involved from like the very start, as opposed to I've written a full track, now go sing on it. Like,
you've actually
it's much more of an organic process. And
there's also been like thinking about like how things work on a visual level as well, with like ideas for videos or artwork or concepts or stuff like that to go with it as well. Which has been really good. So it is very much like, even though it is a Twanta Is Broken album, it is very much like an album of the three of us.
I do love.
There are some other features as well, which I'm not going to divulge just yet. But the common thread running through all of the album is Seb and Ree's vocals.
I'm just like so stoked to be a part of something that allows me vocally. Like I say, not only to kind of progress and evolve, but actually, like, I have always loved metal vocals, and I've always wanted to be in a situation that calls for it, for me to be able to like do this. It's like, for me, it's like a massively therapeutic thing. Like it's a proper kind of release of like emotion, and it's like really productive anger management. It's great. It
is interesting from just like from obviously the first time I actually saw any sort of performance, I guess you would call it, was obviously because I know when people do music videos, you know, they're probably not actually singing properly.
My guitar wasn't even plugged in, mate.
Yeah, so no, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You probably do it a little bit, but not like, you know, fully. But when actually,
I'll tell you what, it was so much fun to do that, because obviously it was like we were just playing like air guitar. Like, obviously, I'm playing on the guitar that is actually on the song.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'm not having to worry about being precise, and we're just bouncing around like like. The drums going, like the music video is playing loud on the PA in the background. It just felt like we were like playing a show and stuff.
It was really cool.
Video, and we're just acting like. But yeah, it was.
The one thing I will say, I want to give myself some credit for this, is when we did those double time, you know, the sped up. Oh my god!
Oh, there is. I don't know when you're planning to have this up, but on Friday night there was a behind the scenes video of the making of DRIPFEED, the music video. My friend Abby, she came along. And I basically gave her a bunch of cameras, and she just took care of all the behind the scenes stuff. and then I just took it back and edited and whatnot.
Right,
So,
you need to.
so yeah, on Friday.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, on Friday, I can't remember what time it's scheduled to go up, but Friday, I'm sure by the time this comes up, that video will be out if it's Tuesday tonight. So
I'll be straight on it. I was going to say, next time if you do actually do another like full music video, man, don't care who's filming it for you. Just get me to come down. I'll do some bloody behind the scenes. It'd be an absolute pleasure to be there with you all.
The joke though with the drip feed video is like, for me, like doing the vocals, if I'm just miming the vocals, I worry. This is like a classic overthinking problem here. I worry that I'm not going to move my mouth at the right times as what the words are doing, like on the track. So then I just end up like singing or like screaming it while we're doing it, you know, to just try and look as authentic as possible. But when we did the sped up takes, and bear in mind that's like what, like 200 something BPM.
Yeah, we double timed it. Yeah,
I was still screaming along, but like double time, and I was like, I'm morbidly impressed with myself at this point. Like, what the hell? But yeah, it was great fun. Like, it was really, really cool. Really cold. Yeah, really interesting. Standing in a bathroom with bare feet next to some dilapidated urinals, but it was all a great experience.
You loved it, really. So
I did.
Yeah.
It's my niche, you know.
We had to take down the COVID signs though, just for like authenticity, because I don't think you find like a COVID hand washing posters up in like a dilapidated bathroom. So
I love that.
Although I like the irony of that, you know.
We filmed it in, I can't remember, was it like called the print rooms or something like that? They were just like art studio spaces you can rent out in Birmingham that we found, but they found the vacant little studios. You can just rent them on an hourly basis, and
it's really good aesthetic
for what I wanted to do. Yeah, so
it's just great to see
a proper grotty bathroom as well. So
I mean, from the back of this, it's just great. It's great to see that, you know, I mean, for me, I love any time I go on, and if I see it's, I don't even care whether it's one of you guys that has like shared the music video, or if I see somebody I know that's like commented on it. Like, I just love like getting to see it, and just like thinking back to the time before I'd checked it out to then checking it out, and then how it all suddenly I don't honestly, man, like the last week there's obviously you guys know it's been a somewhat trying week in certain ways for me this week, but honestly with this, it's blown my world upside down, the fact that this has happened with you guys, and I feel very, very lucky to have been a part of all of this. You know what, when people say, oh, you know what was the best time for music, the best time for music is now, as far as I'm concerned. Like, look at all of the, could you ever imagine, say 20 years ago, of there being like you know, a metalcore band and then somebody coming in and saying, oh, let's do this, and you know, I'd probably been like, I don't really think that's going to work. But you've got now, I think, a lot of, not everybody obviously, but I think a lot of people are way more open now. You'll have someone like myself that can listen to anything from like some folky acoustic artist all the way up to bands like Infant Annihilator and beyond. Think, you know,
with technology, everything's just so easily accessible anyway.
Yeah.
So before, if you wanted to explore something new musically, and you couldn't just jump on Spotify and take 30 seconds just to check it out and realize, you have to invest so much more stuff beforehand. Probably a lot of the time actual physical money, so you could have just bought a CD,
exactly.
a single or
yeah.
So obviously, for example, I think like obviously back then, I think I prefer the streaming model now because it has more longevity. So like, for example, back in the day, you spend a tenner on a CD, and majority of the time, because you have invested that money and spent money on it, you want to get your money's worth out of it, and you properly like fall in love with albums and stuff. Like, there's albums from bands where I've maybe started listening from that album too, rinsed it from back to back, but any other album they've released either before or after that hasn't really hit the same spot for me. I don't know why. There's some albums like that. Like, I think like Medina Lake's first album, they're back to back. Like, one of my all-time favorite albums, their first one. The second album, I just couldn't. It just didn't do anything for me. Same with Billy Talent. Billy Talent too, with Devil in Midnight Mass and Red Flag on. literally one of my all-time favorite albums. But the first album or anything after that, it's just not the same. No, but I think it's maybe part like a sentimental nostalgia thing involved with that as well. But I think, yeah, you would require so much more if you wanted to explore something new. You'd have to invest so much. And the reason I like the streaming model now, obviously, yes, you get paid an absolute pittance every time someone listens to something. But
your discovery is way up.
But also, as well, the way I see it, somebody buys an album for a tenner, regardless if they listen to that album once or 10,000 times, that £10 is all that's gone towards the artist. Well, not even all of that, because after the splits. Yes, streaming is less, but it's always, once it's in the system, it's always going to be generating some form. I think it just has more sustainability, I think.
And I think it works. It works well as well. Certainly in terms of, I mean, I know not everyone's always fussed about, like, you know, being on a label these days. But I think in terms of this, like, you know, back then, I guess like the labels would have to sort of rely on the fact that people are actually like buying the album.
They would also front the costs.
Yeah, but like a lot of us would obviously, your friend would get like, I remember a friend of mine had the Papa Roach Infest album. His was a copy. He copied that and gave it to me. Whereas, so you're probably getting, you know, quite a big percentage of fans, but the labels don't really know. Whereas with Spotify, you can literally, you can go on an artist and you can see, like, you know, how many people are listening to them per month. I mean, I was looking at your numbers, and combined between the two of you, you guys have got 73,102 monthly listeners between the two of you, which is absolutely amazing. And I think certainly for the fact that a lot of the metal community were jumping on it, and I'm sure they still will be, you know, because it's still early days for the.
Well, this is just the first single from the new album.
This is like, this vocally, I was like dipping my toes in to the. No, put it that way. That's what I'm going to say.
The next single, I'm not going to say name, but comes out in a month. The name is taken. It's inspired by a very extreme, well-known French horror movie, with a very infamous kind of shotgun scene right at the start. Do you know the one?
Hang on.
Begins with an M.
Go on. Can you tell?
Well, if I'll tell you now, you can just censor bleep it out.
Okay.
Have you seen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen. It's inspired by that. So
I've seen the original, and I've seen.
It's the original French one is one of my all-time favorite films. Like. So it's heavy. It's basically a song based off that. That's got Seb on it, and then the single after that, currently as what's kind of penciled in, will be another one from Ree, and that's when she does the exact op. That's the one where it just screams. This is our Balcara tune, basically.
It's like
screaming balls to the wall from start to finish, just boom.
Never let them know your next move. Like that's the thing with me.
It's got all the cliches in there as well. It's got like a super heavy like outro breakdown where it slows down in tempo and pitch drops down and stuff. Like it's got all the metal breakdown cliches in there. Silly noises, like
it is. It is like honestly, whenever I listen to it, I'm like, I am actually so freaking proud of this work. Like
that's the one I'm still currently trying to fit. I think that's the one that's hopefully almost about done.
Is that
I sent you a little clip of like the first 8 bars of the music video I've been working on.
You did treat me to a little.
So you've seen the visual kind of aesthetic behind it and stuff, and so you might have a good idea. Like
you can tell he puts me through a lot. You know?
And I filmed that in like a cabin in like. Out in the countryside, didn't I? Because what I did last summer.
Oh my god!
I rented an Airbnb
for. Oh my god!
I rented an Airbnb for like a week. Took down my computer. Didn't even have any phone signal. Just set up. It was like an Airbnb. This super cool guy called Giles. It was his thing.
Can't believe he's called Giles.
He was great. He had a little like summer house kind of converted thing to an Airbnb at the foot of his garden,
like a little annex.
It's really, and it's really easy to go down. And I was literally be blazing like full blast, and then I look at the time, and it's like 1 a.m. You can't hear a thing, like from any near houses and stuff. It was excellent. Like,
I mean, at least for Giles's sake, I hope that you can, because
that's when we recorded most. I think we did pretty much all the vocals for Breed and that.
Do you know, honestly, genuinely. I think all of the vocals. That's again why I love that track so much. It was the irony of like the quaintness of location. It was like honestly, it was like beautiful.
If you go to my YouTube channel, there's the first part. I've been like video like diarying various points of working this album. So my time from when that week I spent down there is already out. It's on my YouTube channel. It's just like TID4.
I saw something where there was like
if you watch that, it includes you'll get like a little sneak peek of what Ree was doing vocally. I think there's even a shot at the end of me like filming from the window outside whilst you were practicing. You could just
I was just jamming out, man. I was just absolutely loving life, and
I'm gonna have to I'll have to rewatch. I mean, I love that when I showed my boss drip feed on was it like I think it must have been so the night before was when I first heard it, and he's not really he's more your classic sort of, he's into more classic metal and thrash like bands like Annihilator. And I was like, just check this, you might like it. And I know he doesn't really get the whole Sleep Token vibe, that sort of stuff. I thought, let's see. And he had listened through a bit, and he was like, that's actually really good. And they're like, and it was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was like, yeah, man, it's fucking sick.
That's awesome.
So it's nice to hear when people are vibing with it that maybe might not normally. He's the sort of person where you'd be like, dude, you need to get a 7-string guitar, and they'd be like, no, I don't.
Well, I did record it on the 7th. Actually, no, it's my baritone. It's like super low. It's like, for the guitar nerds out there, it's in drop D sharp 1. So it's the same kind of, if you know Sleep Token and they're like low D sharp tuning, like that's the same tuning that I played on this.
He's basically speaking another language to me now. I just play drums.
But for the guitarist now watching, super low, just tune lower. So it's just silly. It's just silly, and it's great. It's fun to be silly and just have. Yeah, there's like some crazy low guitar moments on this album as well, isn't there? Where there's just
stupid. Yeah. I remember you. Yeah, you sent me that.
A lot of guitar
clip.
playing this time is more just sound design, really, if anything.
Yeah.
As opposed to like trying to.
I can't recall which track it was for, or maybe I can, but I don't want to like give anything away. But when you were tracking guitars with George, and then you sent me that clip.
That's
I'm not joking. I was like, my brain can't compute this right now.
That was the outro. That was so funny. That was kind of George. Right? That's like the drip feed tuning, but like an octave lower. So like D sharp 0, like it's an octave lower than a bass guitar on an normal like that. Yeah, I showed you. That's the one that I showed you, Kev. It's the outro breakdown for that.
The one that you treated me to after drip.
Yeah. I'm just trying to not say the song title.
Yeah.
All I can say is
because I want to keep the. So I like the idea of saving all the song titles and the album title for when the pre-order goes live. And
all I can say
is
iTunes
and see the track list and stuff. So
honestly, man, all I can say is if anyone's like made it this far into it, like you don't know what the hell's coming. Seriously, you're in for a massive treat, and it's fun. It's going to be funny because I think from the future. It's just whenever people see that something drops, whether it says like, I'm doing a reaction to like Toronto is broken or it's Reebz, they don't even need to he's just gonna lose his mind. It's just the way it's gonna be. But it's been amazing like with this because there's as well as it's awesome that you guys are working on all of this. It's been cool that we've all been able to connect, and there's gonna be there's some cool stuff that I know we're gonna be working on
got in the works
as well. Stuff, so I'm really
it's just
looking forward
I really
to
want to show you the album, Kevin, but I can't. Well, I can, but like we've got a playlist, like a private SoundCloud playlist that we've got a group chat with me, Ree, Seb, and my manager in, so the guys can like listen whenever they want, and whenever I do a new render or something, I just update it. So whenever they click on it, it's the most up-to-date version of everything. And and I can tell how many times they've listened to stuff. Like one of the tracks has got like 150 plays already from those two just listening to it. That's obviously bleep this out. That's which is which we know is
my
a definite kind of lead. So
I
like,
was not even supposed to be on that.
yeah,
So I heard it. I was like,
a couple of times has hijacked mine and Seb's tunes. She's hijacked our tunes, like, but yeah. So
you shouldn't make them sound like so awesome.
I just want to send you that playlist, Kevin, but obviously then you can't react to it. Like,
I'll tell you what. You really did make me angry a few months ago, though, Christian. Really, really did.
Why?
So before I'd even like had a chat with,
did I send you a tune you wish you saved for a reaction? Is that what it was?
No, right. So the one before anything was announced, you know, like the very first thing you ever said, oh, here's an artist that I'm working with. I was like, fuck me, who's this? And you're like, oh, this is Reebz, and that's how I was like, right, I need to follow her and everything.
Oh, okay.
Right. So Reebz basically, right, when he sent me this, I can't even remember. I don't think it was DRIPFEED. I think it was something else. It was.
It was.
Right. Right, okay.
She's seen the video that you sent me. The little
well, here's what makes me really mad, right? So he sent me this, and I was probably just listening to it constantly, day in, day out, and then I think for like maybe like a week or something, and then I hadn't like for a couple of days, and I was just like walking into town, and I was like, oh, I fucking need some of that, and I was like, right, get my phone, I was like, why has he deleted it? I was like, no.
Yeah, I think I must have replaced the upload. So
I can't remember it now though. So it can be like right, come on, let's fucking feature it.
I'll tell you what, I can send you the album, and then after 6 hours I'll change the URL for everything. Do you want to do that?
You know what? It's a weird one as well, right? Because I always get asked about album reactions a lot. I know we've got a thing we're going to plan for like.
Well, the album's not even finished yet.
Well, dude, right? Generally, when somebody says, "Oh, do you do album reaction?" my first thought is like, "Oh, do I fucking have to?" Because they're so, they can be so long, and if you don't generally like how it starts, then it's like, well, I'm gonna have to see this to the end.
Gonna commit to it for an hour.
Yeah,
but honestly, for this, it's gonna be an absolute joy. It was like, I know I didn't do one for Claire, but basically, I don't think people even know this. I don't even know if ever I mentioned it when we did like the last interview, Christian. But basically, Reebz and everyone watching, when I had first listened to Claire, I wanted to try and take it in as best as I possibly could, and knowing that the vibe that the album was in, I literally just turned all of these lights off. I banged these headphones on, and the bass in these is absolutely insane. It's got one of those like haptic bass, like so you can you literally put it on 12% and it blows your head off. And
nice.
that album.
It's like those bass boosted YouTube videos, just like...
Oh man.
But like, yeah, that was absolutely amazing to do that, and I do think it helps with certain pieces of music to actually take away all of the anything that's like distracting, because you know what it's like these days. It's like, oh, I've got a message, and I was like, no, I need to take this in as fully as possible. And dude, honestly, I literally felt like when I was listening to that I'd taken drugs. That obviously, not that I know what drugs are like, because I'm obviously a good boy and would never do anything like that. But no,
I'll tell you what, I recently discovered the do not disturb function on my iPhone, and it's the greatest thing ever. It's just great.
Oh my, that functions like a staple in my life, man. Like,
well, yeah, I see. Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that after sometimes how long it takes for you to get back. Sometimes.
Oh my god! The other day when I left my phone at the hotel.
Oh, and there was that time when I like FaceTimed you, and you'd literally just wake. I was like, "Have you just had a nap?" And you're like, "Yeah."
I was like, I could lie, and
she's like, I've even got my sleeping shoes on, and like, I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
I have actually got my sleeping shoes on right now.
Have you managed to get the fake blood off them?
No.
Okay. But
no.
Shoes, that's fine.
I know, but now they're my bloodstained sleeping shoes, just to really.
There's many things she says that I'm just not fazed by anymore. I just assume things.
It just
now.
rolls with it.
I assume just weird. Some weird comments she made. I was just like, well, like it's mainly stuff to do with birds. I just assume that.
Or locusts.
I just find it strange because like
that's a bit more level-headed.
when you think like when you learn all these things about like the Locusts, or I mean, I absolutely loved the fact when you did that video on TikTok and you were like, just here with my fans, you turn around, you got this big fuck off turkey. But like, the strange thing about it was I didn't feel phased by it. I was just like, this is really, really cool. But it's about, I know the whole thing about the communication and everything and like weird sleeping patterns. But strangely, even though like I have to be up at work like for like 6:15 in the morning, I'll still like we'll still be like sending voice notes to each other, dude. And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning when having these like deep conversations, and it's just like, oh, I've got my sleeping patterns like so messed up. I'm like, don't. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's cool. I enjoy it. It's always good when you enjoy. You
like those.
You think we're on
7 a.m. conversations in somebody's kitchen.
Oh man! And when you hear the birds outside, that's when you know you're doomed.
Rough.
That is no. I swear I get PTSD from the dawn chorus. It's like, nah, please.
Those moments in the summertime when you leave that house party and the sun's shining and you just feel like the worst person in the world. You've got
your skin is dead. Like you can feel like your skin has died,
and you've got some you've got some old woman walking past you, and you in your mind you know that they're thinking, I know what you've been up to.
You can feel the sunlight on your skin, and it hurts.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like you're disintegrating, and Oh man.
But no, it's been fantastic to discuss this with you guys tonight. It's been, hopefully the people that are watching, they'll find it really insightful. And if you're not already following Toronto is Broken or Reebz, please do. I will make sure everything's dropped down below.
Thanks, guys.
I just want to thank both of you for your time, and thanks for writing amazing music, and thanks for just being.
Thank you, man.
Thank you,
for being an absolute legend. Yeah, seriously. Like
it feels like we've just. Like it's been great to have like this kind of reaction overall. Like I was obviously quite nervous going into this because it's the first track we're using to announce the album with, but it's not a drum bass track. It's not what we. It's completely off. Like it's very different, and I've not had a single comment. Touch wood or like whatever. I've not had a comment yet. We've been like, oh, I prefer. Oh, he's not making drum bass anymore. Oh, I wish this was drum bass or something or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like. Because obviously, I think just like with metal, when metal bands tried to go out, I think like Dayseeker got like an absolute quite a backlash from the album they released, because I think they used to be a lot heavier. But their last album, I've not listened to anything. It's absolutely phenomenal. But I understand, like in metal, you have those people that like complain when people get like there's the old like Bring Me the Horizon kind of thing.
I was literally just about to say Bring Me anything pre 2013 or whatever. After they released that Sempiternal, you got. I mean, it was actually incredulous the amount of people that kind of would have something negative to say, because it wasn't like just hardcore like.
So like
I was like, whoa, it's
them,
really good.
they're obviously not getting as heavier; they're getting lighter. But for me, my sound's getting heavier. Is doing the opposite thing. Is, if anything, it's becoming like less accessible, if that makes sense. Because I think maybe heavier stuff. Obviously, I think the metal scene is obviously massively bigger than drum and bass, even though drum and bass is like a strong UK roots and culture kind of dance music, goes all the way back to the 80s and stuff. But I just still think like maybe metal is still bigger potentially, just overall worldwide and stuff. But like. Yeah, it's getting heavier, and it's obviously harder for the general listener to get into heavier music as opposed to going the other way around. But I've not had any backlash and stuff and whatever. But yeah, it feels like after all this build-up, like the album is out, but really, this is just the first of many singles from the album and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, so it's why it literally just if I may just add really quickly, I think it was why this was like such an important moment. Just for myself as well, is because it's like not only is it the first single that is off the Toronto is Broken album, but also it's for me it's the first showcasing of like my my vocals in
I think you maybe had a bit more center stage in this song as opposed to the other features you've done, maybe.
I mean, I would say that in terms of like creative input, I I'll put 1,000% into everything that I do, but it's like to be involved in, you know, this kind of something with such an awesome, like, visceral sound. For me, it's like, oh my god, this is really cool. This is my moment.
And I think
man.
maybe going back to what we mentioned earlier, like, we're not just it's not just a one-off song. It's also thinking about the context of the other stuff. So
yes,
I think maybe Ree, and same with Seb as well, their involvement isn't so surface deep. It's a lot deeper.
There's a lot more personal elements that go into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like into the actual production as well. Part of it is them as well, and the initial songwriting and the instrumental. Like I said, as opposed to earlier, and maybe with a lot of the other collaborations you've done, they've kind of pretty much had a fully fleshed out, more or less track ready to go, or whatever. Sent it to you, you've done your thing, and you've been very detached from the initial writing process and creation of it. That they've not necessarily been there when that moment where an idea kind of clicks. Because obviously that's a very normally by yourself, trying lots of things out, and you're by yourself, and you don't really share that moment with someone. But to be there when we've had moments where we've just, like I said, some of the tracks where we just started with a drum loop, I've been doing some riffs, and then
it's been really cool.
We have something, and then it clicks, and then we're like, okay, yeah, then we'll take it to here and stuff like that. It's an idea worth going into, kind of thing.
I actually find, as well, if you don't mind me saying, that like, I think for me the most gratifying track on the album was the one that, if you recall, we had the most vocal difficulty with, when it was, do you remember? And it was I'm not going to say what it is, or can I say it?
Well, if you say, Kev will just bleep out any titles that aren't
on
oh yeah,
where it was that constant thing of like, oh yeah, okay, so this is going to be the chorus, this is going to be the chorus, oh yeah, that sounds great. 5 minutes later, no, I think that sounds shit, actually. And I was
I think we tried like 3 or 4. So the screaming bits we had down from a T.
Yeah, that was fine. That was
and
then
and I think we just ran out of time. I think that weekend or whatever, and then we came back to it later, and I think we were like, yeah, we're gonna get this chorus done and the cleans done, because I know this bit is going to be like the chorus, but it's going to be a bit softer because it's still in the intro, and then there's going to be the full pelt kind of chorus and whatever. And we had all these references. We were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's try this. We're tracking it, do a couple of layers and spend a couple of hours on it. And then I'm like, no, it doesn't work.
No. And I was like, man,
start all over again. And I think we tried about 3 or 4 different versions. I think there was even one where we took it home and like, right, that's it. And then even then I was like, no.
But that's the gratifying thing is when you get there, when it finally sits right, you know, like, it's good. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, and that's
effortless. I think that what we were trying to do before was maybe try and force an idea.
Too forced, exactly, and that's like the key. I mean, it's the key to doing good vocals is like, don't force it, and it's like that's exactly, you know, what I'm always trying to train myself to do. And I'm really lucky that I've got some great people around me who give me some like amazing advice, like Ruth, you know, in terms of vocal advice. Like, she's given me some absolute invaluable tips that I've
Ruth is, for those that don't know, she is a predominantly drum and bass vocalist, Ruth Royal. She has the same manager as me, and she's really blown up like in the past couple of years, big times. They're getting like millions of streams and stuff like that and stuff. And
Sweet.
She's really killing it. And obviously we've kind of joining our team and like family. What through me working with me, obviously she's been working with like my manager a bit as well through through proxy and whatever. And obviously Ruth is part of that. And there's another Lottie Jones is another good vocalist. She's
absolutely phenomenal.
She's great. She's a bit younger. And Axel Boy as well, who's like a house and kind of drum and bass producer as well. But yeah, like Ruth has been like working a bit with Ree as well on like, because she does vocal teaching anyway,
coaching. I mean, it's just really, really, really useful to have, because I mean, the problem is like, I guess, being self-taught, especially when you're doing extreme vocals, it's like, you know, you want to make sure that you're getting it right. You don't want to do anything that's actually in the long run going to just ruin you. So, you know, I mean, that's why, like, for me, being able to actually confer with someone who like is an incredible and established vocalist like Ruth, You know, even though, you know, obviously she doesn't do like the extreme vocals, but in terms of the techniques that you use, especially for warm-ups and cooling down, it's all the fundamentals are the same, you know, and that's why it's really great to be able to talk to people who have experience, who can give me this advice, you know. So I feel really lucky. Like, it's a good team of people.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've been able to get all that, but I'm just I guess we'll all just have to wait and see what comes.
You're part
next.
of the team as well now, Kev.
Yeah, man.
You're part of the team.
There's no escape now, Kev.
I'm not gonna complain at that. Won't complain.
I know
at
where
that
you
one
live
bit.
because I had to send you a CD.
Yeah, he knows where you live, Kev, and I know where you live, Chris. So
yeah, so
yeah, just try and go.
I don't know what we're implying.
Ominous. I don't know. It's all become comically ominous all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Am I just gonna like be in bed and I'm just gonna feel this hand and it's like, it's just a dream, Kevin. It's not really me.
I think you wish, but
I wish, but no, seriously. Look at. I think everyone's just going to be in for an absolute treat. I think they really are. So, you know, it's really, really cool.